Program is a production of WFAE FM 91, the broadcast service of UNC Charlotte.
Hello and welcome to the Thistle Shamrock, music from the Celtic lands. This is Fiona Ritchie. Every so often on the programme we have a chance to meet some of the folks whose music we've enjoyed through the years. This week we travel to Scotland to chat with a couple of today's best-known Scottish folk musicians, Cilla Fisher and Artie Trezise. Together with fellow musician Gary Coleman, they'll be chatting about their lives and their music. We'll also be treated to a wide selection of the songs they've recorded. Cilla Fisher and Artie Trezise with Gary Coleman this week on the Thistle and Shamrock. I met with Cilla and Artie in Edinburgh, and I'll leave it to them to introduce themselves.
My name's Artie Trezise and I live on the east coast of Scotland, despite the fact that I've got a Cornish name. That happened by virtue of the fact that my father came to work in the mines up in the east, and he married a girl called Fisher, as I did eventually. And so I was brought up on the east, round about Cooper in Fife. And I've lived there most of my life. I went to university in Glasgow and stayed through there for some years, but then we moved back, kind of felt the pull east again.
I belong to Glasgow, as the song says. Born and brought up in Glasgow. Involved in music from the very early age, not through choice, I can say. My brother and sister, Archie Fisher, Ray Fisher, were involved with skiffle music, really, basically, at the beginning. And then it kind of developed into the folk music, because they were interested in performing more, music from their own country. So, I've been involved in music since, I think I did my first album when I was 9, and radio broadcasts, and I didn't really think that I would be involved in anything else, but I must admit I did take a typing course when I was at school. And I have typed, but I'm not very good at that, so I've gone back to singing.
A beggar man come a yonly, seeking out for charity. Get away for your courtesy, would you lodge a lane, poor man? Well, the neck been wet and it's been cold, she's ta'en pity on the poor old soul. She's ta'en pity on the poor old soul, and she bade him to sit down. We has Turin, Nurin, Antony, right and Nurin, follow doody. Right and Nurin, we are Turin, Nurin, I do. He sat himself in the chimney nook, with all his bags behind a crook. With all his bags behind a crook, merrily he did sing. We has Turin, Nurin, Antony, right and Nurin, follow doody. Right and Nurin, we are Turin, Nurin, I do. All the doors been locked quite tight, the old woman rose in the middle of the night. The old woman rose in the middle of the night to find the old man gone. She ran to the cupboard likewise to the kist, all thing there and nothing missed. Clapping her hands and the Lord be blessed, wasn't he an honest old man? We has Turin, Nurin, Antony, right and Nurin, follow doody. Right and Nurin, we are Turin, Nurin, I do. When the breakfast was ready and the table laid, the old woman gaed to waken the maid. The bed was there, but the maid was gone. She's a war with a lame poor man. We has Turin, Nurin, Antony, right and Nurin, follow doody. Right and Nurin, we are Turin, Nurin, I do. 7 years they passed on, and this old beggar come back again, seeking out for a charity, would you lodge a lane, poor man? A beggar I'll never lodge again, for I had a doctor in my ain, and she gied awa wi a beggar man, so I'll have you to be gone. We are Turin, Nurin, Antony, right and Nurin, follow doody. Right and Nurin, we are Turin, Nurin, I do. If your doctor you want to see, she has 12 bairnies on her knee. She has 12 bairnies on her knee, and a 30 coming around. We has Turin, Nurin, Antony, right and Nurin, follow doody. Right and Nurin, we are Turin, Nurin, I do. Yonder she sits and yonder she stands, the fairest lady in all Scotland, with servants there at her command, since she gaed with a lame poor man. We has Turin, Nurin, Antony, right and oor and follow-doo-a-dee, right and oor and nee, we are toor and I-do. We are toor and Anthony, right and oor and follow-doo-dee, right and nee, we are toor and I-do.
From Scotland, Cilla Fisher and Artie Trezise with The Beggar Man. Cilla and Artie are our guests on the Thistle and Shamrock this week as we chat with them and feature their music. They've been playing together primarily as a duo for over a decade, but lately Gary Coleman has been joining them on keyboards.
Well, I come from Dumfries, but I came up to Edinburgh 4 years ago and studied music. And after realising that I didn't want to teach music, I got in touch with Artie through various means. And since then, I've been with him for 1.5 years, playing children's and adult music.
So the reason that you're involved in the music that you're involved in, all of you, is something that is more accidental or something you weren't aware of making any decision regarding?
It became either a job or the music. It was one of these things I couldn't hold down the job any longer. We were doing it part-time, and I was late every day for a teaching post I was trying to hold down. And, you can't turn up in the middle of the afternoon, 2 or 3 hours late for a teaching job. So we just decided that we should just go out and do it full-time. We decided we'd do it for 1 year initially, and that was 13, I think, years ago.
What about the two of you? Did you meet because you were playing together, or did you play together after you already had met?
We actually played on the same concert one night, but I didn't see him. I think it was after that, I don't know, we were backstage, we met somewhere in Glasgow at a concert, and we met and we chatted, and I think it's something like ridiculous, like 6 weeks later we decided to get married. And we did, and it was really, and I was 18, and he was a lot older than me.
Not that much older than that. About 5 years older.
Yeah, we got married, and as Artie said, he was teaching at that time, and it got to the stage that we're doing some bookings at night, a few concerts here, a few concerts there, and then it went on from more and more. I mean, the work just built up progressively. I mean, apart from the fact that we'd enough to do trying to keep the house together, but he had to go to school in the morning, and I had to try and kind of get him there, and it got too much for me, so I said, right, I think we should maybe have a go at the singing.
Talk a wee bit about the music that you are playing. Obviously, Cilla, your family has had some influence in the music that you do, and your family's pretty well known as a singing family. Maybe you could talk a wee bit more about that.
Well, the basis of it was that Ray and Archie sang together, and as I said earlier, skiffle were involved in that. But then they became interested basically in Scottish music. And one of the finest exponents, I suppose, in that time, late 50s, early 60s, was Jeannie Robertson from Aberdeen. And Ray was lucky enough to actually go up and meet this woman. And she liked Ray, and they got on well. And she gave Ray an amazing amount of songs, as did her daughter, Lizzie Higgins. So they started to perform more traditional material. And I have to admit that when the first time I heard her, I think I was about 8 or 9, I wasn't that interested. I didn't really think it was that interesting, an old woman singing a cappella songs, mostly quite a lot of ballads used to do too. And I think it took me till I was about 12 to realise that I did like them in a way, really, because I was kind of brainwashed it, and I could sing these songs that I'd never physically sat down to learn, just with listening to my sister and my brother singing. And then it progressed. I sang with my sister Audrey. We're a family of 7, let me tell you, 6 girls and a boy. So we kind of divided into 3. My oldest sister Jean never actually performed on stage with us, but Ray and Archie sang together professionally. Cindy and Joyce sang semi-professionally, and Audrey and I did the same. So you could have a bumper bundle of the family, or you could have us in duos. And that's the way it kind of worked out until I was left to go solo when Audrey emigrated. She went to Australia, and that was when I met Artie.
My father was a bailiff, a wee farm at Capeley. He worked on the land all the days of his life. By the time he made second, he I said he reckoned he'd ploughed near on half o' the east Nuke of Fife. He'd feed on at Randleston, Crawhill and Cleffington, Cambo and Camby and Bigger any hill. At King's Barnes he's married, at Four Hills he's buried, but man, had he lived, he'd be ploughing on Sill. For those days were his days, those ways were his ways, to follow the plough while his back was still strong. But those days have passed, and the time came at last for the weakness of age to make way for the young. I wasn't me for ploughing to the sea I was going, that follow the fish and the fisherman's ways. In rain, hail, and sunshine, I've watched the lang run line. A man mair contented his hale working day. I've a lang line the flatten ground, Dutch the dogger bank, pull the big fish fae the deep devil's hole. I sight crawled off Shetland, the Faroes and Iceland, and weather much worse than a body could go. For that day was my day, that way was my way, to follow the fish while my back was still strong. But that day has passed and the time come at last for the weakness of age to make way for the young. My sons, they have grown and away they have gone to search for black oil in the far northern sea. Like oilmen they walk and like Yankees they talk, there's no much in common between my sons and me. They've rough-rigged on Josephine, Corkies and Ninian, Claymore and Dunlin, Fisher and Hawk. They've made fortunes for sure, for in one run ashore they spent more than I am in a hail season's worth. But this day is their day, this way is their way, to ride their off rigs while their backs are still strong. But this day will pass and the time come at last for the weakness of age to make way for the young. My grandsons are growing to the school they're soon going, the lang weeks of summer they spend here with me. We walk through the warm days, talk of the old ways, the cornfield and codfish, the land and the sea. We walk through the fields that my father once tilled, talk way the old men that once sailed with me. Land has been awfully good, I've shown them all what could, oh, the past and the present, what their future might be. For the morn will be their day, what will be their way, what will they make, oh, the land, sea and sky. Man, I've seen awfully changed, but it still seems guy strange. They look at my world through a young laddie's eyes.
What about yourself, Artie? Why, Scottish music? Why not rock music or jazz or classical music?
Well, not because I have any particular preference, but I feel that we do it better than anybody else. I don't mean, that sounds a bit big-headed, doesn't it? But I think if you sing American songs as a Scots person, you're always compared to an American. Now, obviously, an American's bound to do them better. But there aren't many people who can sing Scots songs as well as Scots people can. And I think just by specialising in that particular field, we've done well and got a deal of satisfaction from it, by trying to be some of the best folk around and working on material with that end in view, When we first started, before we, I was talked earlier about the demand for us being fairly high, and so we packed in work. But I mean, at that time, we would take anything we could get. So we'd play in pubs and, kind of social events that we wouldn't really entertain nowadays. And in order to survive in that scene, you've got to be able to play a real cross-section of stuff. You could do one Scots song and maybe a tearjerker and then a country and western song and a fast and a slow and a funny and really a whole variety of stuff in order to just keep folks' attention. So we would do a lot of American songs, country and western things, anything. And there was a lot of the harmonies that we kind of got together were, I suppose, Carter family type harmonies, we loved their music, and there was a lot of that in it.
Because, basically because a lot of, Scots songs don't have harmonies anyway, an awful lot of them, or, were they accompanied by guitar for a start? If anything, it should have been accordion or a fiddle or something, but, immediately it was a guitar everybody used, so, it was an American influence, so you can't sing a ballad with a guitar. We've just proved them all wrong.
Young men, someone of a true for dragoons was my dad.
From the gilded spontoon to the pipe I was ready. I asked for nae mair, but a young soldier laddie. Sing fa da da la da da la da da laddie. But the peace it reduced me to begging despair, till I met my old buddy at Cunningham Fair. His rags regimental, they fluttered so gaudy, my heart did rejoice with my soldier laddie. Sing fa da da la da da la da da laddie. And now I have lived, and I know not how long, and still I can join in a cup or a song. But whilst with both hands I can hold the glad steady, here's to thee, my love, my ain soldier laddie. Sing fa da da la da da la da da laddie.
Well, you mentioned American music, and I know you've visited the United States on more than one occasion. Do you notice a lot of links between the traditional music or folk-related music over there and the music that you're singing?
I remember once we did a workshop on that very question with people called Caroline and Sandy Payton from up in Connecticut. And it was really interesting because they kind of set it up for us. They would take an American ballad, and they were very familiar with all the stuff that we knew, and they would ask us to sing the Scottish equivalent. But then when we presented it, it really came out the other way around, of course. You know, we were singing the original, and they would sing the American Appalachian ballad as often as not that came from that, and it was fascinating. And I'd love to go into that in more detail, but, you know, time is short, to say the least, in our lives, and it's one area that we haven't really explored. But every time you go to an event there and you hear an American ballad, you always say, oh, listen how that's changed, and ooh, isn't that odd, the way that story's just taken a wee different twist at the end, or the way it's told has got more of a kind of raunchiness to it than we would be a much more laid back kind of style of telling the story. It's a fascinating area that I don't know enough about.
Did you find that whenever you've gone across and sung for people, that people have come up to you after concerts and said, that song you sung, I know it, but it's different, and have sort of presented you with a lot of variants?
Not directly. I mean, they usually come up and say, we loved your version of that song, it was really beautiful. No, they don't. But no, they don't come up with that sort of question. They really tend to come up more for the details of things. They like to find out exactly where you got it and who you got it from. And I mean, I try to do that with most songs. If I'm singing a song that's been written by somebody, I try to explain where it's come from. But no, not a real exchange thing.
The Americans are great absorbers of everything, much more than we are. I think, I don't know why that should be, but they seem to just suck it up like a hoover, you know, and it seems to go in there, and the details seem to stay. We've had people coming up and telling us particular songs, and you've changed that version that you did way back at Hartford in 1982. You know, you've changed that line and things like that. They seem to have amazing brains for detail, you know, that we kind of perhaps would gloss over. Yeah, I mean, I'm making gross generalizations, but Americans they do love to get a hold of something, and if they get a hold of something like folk music, they just get a hold of it by the neck and get as much out of it for themselves as they can. Yeah. And therefore, Scylla's right.
That's right.
You know, they're not interested particularly in telling us all the details, but they want to know where our version comes from, or how we got it. And
Yes,
it all goes
I mean,
into the
they're
file.
not, and that's the thing, they're not afraid to let you know that they really enjoy something. And they, as I've said, they can pick out things in a song that I've sung a song a dozen times or something, and there's a line that's gone right past, never noticed, and they've found something in it, and it turns the whole story around. It's wonderful. It's great.
Well, I know that your trips across the United States have resulted in you absorbing one or two songs from their culture, and there's a Stan Rogers song in particular.
Mm-hmm. The first time I met Stan actually was at the Norfolk Festival, and we had a workshop, a sea song workshop, and I hadn't met him then. So it was in the university. I went down this hall, and there was this voice sort of booming out in the distance, and I thought, it was very early in the morning, you know, I had my deep brown voice, sort of 9:30 or 10, and I thought, at least I've got a sound system, so that'll be all right, you know, I can sort of croak my way through. And of course they didn't. It was just his amazingly powerful voice. And I sort of sat there open-mouthed. And then as it went on, I had a cup of coffee, and he sat there open-mouthed when I sang. And it worked quite well. It was sort of mutual admiration. And I said, oh, I love that song. And he said, oh, I love that song. So we sort of swapped songs and asked about recording the Ginny C. And he said, of course.
Come all you lads, draw near to me. That I be not forsaken. For this day is lost, the Genie see, and my living has been taken. And I'll go to sea no more. We set out that day in the bright sunlight, the same as any other. My son and I, and old John Price, in a boat named for my mother. And I'll go to sea no more. And it's well, you know, what the fishing has been. It's been scarce and hard and cruel. But this day, by God, we sure got caught. And we sang and laughed like fools. And I'll go to sea no more. But I'll never know what we struck that day. But strike we did like thunder. John Price gave a cry and pitched overside. Now forever he's gone under. And I'll go to sea no more. But no leak I found from bow to hold, no rocket walls that got her. But what I found made my heart turn cold, for every scene poured water. And I'll go to sea no more. My God, I cried as she went down. That boat was like no other. My father built her when I was 9, named her for my mother. And I'll go to sea no more. And sure I can have another built in the boat shop down in Dover. But I would not float the keel they lay, like the one the waves roll over. And I'll go to sea no more. So come on, you lads, draw near to me. That I be not forsaken. For this day is lost, the Genie see, and my whole life has been taken. And I'll go to sea no more.
talk a wee bit now about some of your special projects. I know, Scylla, for one thing, and I'm sure it wasn't just because of your name, but you developed a particular interest in fishing songs.
That was just a plan. There was an album. We were really due an album release, and I was going to do a solo album, and the theme thing just came up. We live very near the east coast, and there's lots of lovely fishing villages, and there's lots of lovely fishing songs around, and there hadn't really been anything done, and far less a woman singing songs of the sea, because everybody thinks it should be, it's all to do with men, which is rubbish. I mean, they catch them out the sea, but by the time they came to shore, it was all women's work. And I thought it was just nice, a theme just to do it for a change, something else. So doing these fishing songs was a nice challenge for me. Also working with a whole new bunch of musicians, some Edinburgh-based people, outstanding people, and I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Well, it was a nice album too, because you did put in some pretty old songs, but there were also some contemporary songs about the state of fishing today, so it was a nice overview of Scottish folk music.
Well, I tried to do that too. I mean, we thought about that, and there was going to be poems and everything, but I mean, it could go on and on. You could do volume 2 and volume 3. But as you said, I tried to get some of the songs that relate to what's happening in the fishing industry now in Scotland, and I think we did that quite satisfactorily.
I mind the days when they worked at the drip net, and the Clydesmen all went with the ring nets so fine. But all they tried methods of new being outtaken for the sake of fortune and keeping no time. And what will we do when the minches are finished? And what will we do when the herrings are done? And what will we gang with your pursers and trawlers? And how will we ever pay off the bank loan? There's still some get shotties and mackerel at Cornwall, so we'll all head down south and scrape up what's left there. We'll fill up the fish hold and we'll may fear the future, but soon there'll be mackerel at Cornwall nae more. Blue whitings in season out there at St. Kilda, so we'll rig up deep trawl and we'll all head out west, with tow after tow that's all landed for fish meal. The whiting will go the same as the rest. And what will we do when the mackerel is finished? And what will we do when the whitings are done? And what will we gang with our pursers and trawlers? And how will we ever pay off the bank loan? All by my collared headin', there bonny fish and ales and fadin'. By my collared headin', you drawn frae the fort, and when you're sleepin' on your pillows, dreamt ye oft o'er fair fellows, darkling as they face the billows, hot a feller woman well knows. By my collared headin', there bonny fish and ales and fadin'. By my collared headin', you drawn frae the fort, and when the creel o'herrin passes, ladies clad in silks and laces gather in their broad places, toss their heads and screw their faces. By my collared headin', there bonny fish and ales and fadin'. By my collared headin', you drawn frae the fort, new neighbour wives contentment tellin', when the bonny fish
fishy in the little dishy. Ye shall get a fishy when the boat comes home. Dance to your daddy, my bonny laddie. Dance to your daddy, my bonny lamb. Ye shall get a coatie and a pair of breeches. Ye shall get a fishy when the boat comes home. Dance to your daddy, my bonny laddie. Dance to your daddy, my bonny lamb. Ye shall get a whippy and a billy peery. Ye shall get a fishy when the boat comes home. Dance to your daddy, sing to your mammy. Dance to your daddy, to your mammy sing. Ye shall get a fishy in a little dishy. Ye shall get a fishy when the boat comes home.
Well, we're talking in a building in Edinburgh, and you have just come out of a rather hot room, surrounded by and followed by a whole lot of hot, noisy little children, which is something else that you spend a lot of time doing, right?
This started by accident. We have a daughter of our own, and as usual with parents, you're out for a run in the car, we'd sing regularly. Anything, she'll be coming around the mountain, anything. Now, you notice that, that's a sort of American thing. There's a few other things that we sang, and I think most of them were American songs. And we thought, well, I thought, God, there's things that I know, so I started some of the kids' songs that I remember. Street games, mostly, street rhymes for skipping and ball games. And then we developed into Shoving Your Granny Off a Bus and a few other, Three Craws, all the standard ones. And Jane said, that's great, Mum, you know, there's none of the records that I've got any of these songs on. You should do a record with some of them, because children would like that. And I said, oh, good, do you think so? So we sort of pondered for a month or two, and then a friend, actually, Stuart Anderson, is a very fine accordion player, arrived at the house and came in, and we started chatting about it, and he said, oh, and he was playing the accordion along with Shove Your Granny and this. And he said, well, you should do it. And between Stuart, Artie and myself, we basically put the album together. We used Stuart as the main backing, and then dubbed on with drums, and we had keyboards and fiddles and whistles and bagpipes. Eventually we got everything in that we could think of.
Just anybody that was visiting was invited to put something together. Some American folks dropped in and said, oh, I've got a bit for you on the album, do you want to come along? Hammer Dulcimer, yeah. That was Walt Michael, and he came along and said, oh, I'll do that for you, and he came along and played on the song, and that was good fun, that.
Wee Willie Winkie runs through the town, upstairs and downstairs in his neckgown, toddling at the windy, crying through the lock. Are all the bairnies in their beds? It's past 8 o'clock. Hey, Willie Winkie, are you coming, Ben? The cat's singing her song, hey, the sleeping hen. The dog's laid out on the floor and Disney gie a cheep. But here's a laddie wide awake that winna fall asleep. Anything but sleep, you rogue, shining like the moon, rattling in an iron jug, way an iron spoon, rumbling, tumbling round about, and cawing like a cock, skittling like a ken of what you'll whacking sleeping folk. Hey, Willie Winkie, the wain's in a creel, wriggling up a buddy's knee, just like a nail, pulling at the cat's luck. Time you settle down for a wee Willie Winkie, he's coming round. Willie Winkie runs through the town, upstairs and downstairs in his neck-gown, tiddling at the windy, crying through the lock. And all the bairnies in their beds, it's past 8 o'clock.
I choke it on a tatty, a tatty. I choke it on a tatty, a plate a tatty, plate a tatty, plate a tatty soup. My mother sent for the doctor, doctor. My mother sent for the doctor because of the tatty, cause of the tatty, cause of the tatty soup. The doctor says you're deeing, Ian. The doctor says you're deeing because of the tatty, cause of the tatty, cause of the tatty soup. They put me in a coffin, a coffin. They put me in a coffin because of the tatty, cause of the tatty, cause of the tatty soup. I'm in a dee holy, holy. I'm in a dee holy because of the tatty, cause of the tatty, cause of the tatty soup. The minister he said his prayers, prayers. The minister said his prayers because of the tatty, cause of the tatty, cause of the tatty soup. But now I'm up in heaven, heaven. But now I'm up in heaven because of the tatty, cause of the tatty, cause of the tatty soup. And the angels gave me supper, supper. The angels gave me supper because of the tatty, cause of the tatty, cause of the tatty soup. And what did I get for my supper? Supper. And what did I get for my supper? A plate of tatty, plate of tatty, plate of tatty soup.
Well, it must be a rather different experience, you know. And one night you might be singing to basically an adult audience, and then the next day singing to all these young children.
I had a girl we girl on the second row this afternoon, and I was talking to the audience. She said, "That man's funny. He's got a real funny face." Can you imagine if adults said that to you? Come on.
Just smack them in the mouth, I know. Yes, your face will be funny too in a minute.
Not for me. I think I quite like the distinction. I like to know where I am.
Here is the train to Glasgow. And here is the driver, Mr. McIver, who drove the train to Glasgow. And here is the guard from Donnybristle, who waved his flag and blew his whistle to tell the driver, Mr. McIver, to start the train to Glasgow. And here is a boy called Donald McBrain, who came to the station to catch the train and saw the guard from Donnybristle wave his flag and blow his whistle to tell the driver, Mr. McIver, to start the train to Glasgow. And here is a guard, a kindly man, who at the last moment hauled into the van that fortunate boy called Donald McBrain, who came to the station to catch the train and saw the guard from Donnybristle wave his flag and blow his whistle to tell the driver, Mr. McIver, to start the train to Glasgow. And here are the hens, and here are the cocks, clucking and crowing inside a box. In charge of the guard, that kindly man, who at the last moment hauled into the van. That fortunate boy called Donald McBrain, who came to the station to catch the train, and saw the guard from Don of Bristle wave his flag and blow his whistle to tell the driver, Mr. McIver, to start the train to Glasgow. Here is the train which gave a jolt, and loosened a catch and loosened a bolt. Let out the hens and let out the cocks, clucking and crowing out of their box. In charge of the guard, that kindly man, who at the last moment hauled into the van. That fortunate boy called Donald McBrain, who came to the station to catch the train, and saw the guard from Don of Bristle wave his flag and blow his whistle to tell the driver, Mr. McIver, to start the train to Glasgow. The guard chased a hen and missing it fell. The hens were clucking, the cocks as well. Unless you were there, you haven't a notion. The flurry, the fuss, the noise, the commotion caused by the train which gave a jolt, and loosened a catch and loosened a bolt. Let out the hens and let out the cocks, clucking and crowing out of their box. In charge of the guard, that kindly man, who at the last moment hauled into the van. That fortunate boy called Donald McBrain, who came to the station to catch the train, and saw the guard from Don and Bristle wave his flag and blow his whistle to tell the driver, Mr. McIver, to start the train to Glasgow. Now Donald was quick, and Donald was neat, and Donald was nimble on his feet. He caught the hens and he caught the cocks, and he put them back in their great big box. The guard was pleased as pleased could be. He invited Donald to come to tea on Saturday at Donny Bristle, and he'd let him blow his lovely whistle. He said in all his life he'd never seen a boy so quick and clever, and so did the driver, Mr. McIver, who drove the train to Glasgow.
It seems to me my memories of music in school are not short really of painful, in the way that you were forced to sing songs that were usually not really a lot of fun to sing, and I think a lot of kids develop a pretty bad attitude towards music in general.
I think you're dead right. You better ask Gary about that, because he was in touch with teachers training, and it's way behind the times. We go into the school and we just take it apart. I mean, they just can't believe that this is real music being played with verve and enthusiasm and excitement, instead of kind of timidly. But you know, Gary, he can't believe that despite all the things that are available now, that nothing fresh is happening.
When I studied at Napier College in Edinburgh, most of the pupils could read music, but they couldn't play by ear, which is what most musicians do, you know. And so when it comes to learning, kids, all they can do is play what's written down in music, and as none of the street rhymes or street games, whatever, are written down in music, they can't really adapt that to piano to give to the children. So when Artie asked me to write these arrangements that are in the Singing Kettle book down, I was fair and glad, because I could play by ear as well. Because most of the pupils, they can only read the dots on the paper, but they can't play the piano by ear or anything at all.
I think you have to teach kids a love of music, and I don't think that's being done, certainly not in this country. You've got to fill them with enthusiasm for it, and you'll not do that by sitting them in a classroom and telling them that, learn so far, whatever.
Do you find yourself encouraging your own children to take an interest in music?
My daughter has already taken an interest. She can read music. I can't read music. She can read music. She started playing violin, and then she developed onto viola. She prefers the tone of that. But she can read music, and she can also plink on a piano. I mean, she knows. She's got a tuned ear. She knows when she can keep things in pitch and things. And but that was really, I didn't really push her into it. I think she wanted to do it anyway. She'd been at so many festivals and seen all these people playing and thought, oh, this looks great fun. Hope she doesn't end up at folk festivals. But no, I think she's got a musical ear. I don't know what a musical ear is. I mean, I can sing in tune. That's basically what I think of as my musical ear. I don't really play anything. I can play, 3 chords on the guitar. And I suppose people would just think it's ridiculous that I can make a living out of music when I don't play instruments at all. I don't read dots. I just smile and sing.
Tell me what was on your road in northern wind. My feet they've travelled England, bottom dean for the north. Oh man, I saw the siller tides run up the firth of Forth. When the Camden wheeling up and finally fall rise, and frae the fields the creeping nest on yonder shore that lies. But tell me as ye pass them by, what saw ye on your way? O manner of the roving gulls that sail up in the Tay. But saw ye nothing lean when afore ye came to fight? For there's muckle lying yonder Tay that's near to me alive. I'm on a sweat the Angus braes, ye have me trod for years. Oh, and porgy a hameless one that canny see for tears. And far above the Angus strands, I heard the wild geese bleat. A lang skein o' beaten wings, with their heads towards the sea. And I their roaring voices thrilled in them on the air. Oh, when to mercy had ye wished, but I darna listen mair.
Well, from singing kettles to fishing songs, you definitely are involved in a lot of different areas of music. What plans do you have?
It seems to be planned for us. We just finished, on Friday, we just finished a musical with children in Stirling. It's been going on for a month. And Scylla wrote most of the songs for that, and then we kind of tutored the kids and helped them and sang with them in it. And that was kind of chosen for us. People asked us to do that. And you suddenly find that you can do something that you never thought you could do. We're still ambitious to keep touring and to keep singing to all sorts of audiences, as many different and diverse audiences as possible.
Any more plans to visit the United States?
Are you asking? If there's anybody out there would like to ask us yet, we'd like to go back. As I said, Gary hasn't been yet. It's been a few years since we're over. Yeah, I'd love to. We'll organise something.
Scots singer Cilla Fisher. On the Thistle and Shamrock this week, we've been featuring the music of Cilla Fisher and husband Artie Trezise, who, together with Gary Coleman, joined us to chat about their music. With thanks to our special guests, I'll leave you by inviting you to join me on this radio station next week for another hour of Celtic music on the Thistle and Shamrock.
The Thistle and Shamrock is produced and hosted by Fiona Ritchie at WFAE FM 91, the broadcast service of UNC Charlotte. To learn more about the music featured in the series and for information on the Thistle and Shamrock newsletter, t-shirts, and travel, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to the Thistle and Shamrock, WFAE, 1 University Place, Suite 91, Charlotte, North Carolina, 28213. The Ford Foundation has supported this program through the American Public Radio Program Fund.
this is the American Public Radio Network.
And good morning. You are in tune with 89.7 FM WKSU in Kent. We're broadcasting in stereo from the campus of Kent State University. We're member-supported public radio for all of Northeast Ohio. Stay tuned for a full 3 hours of folk music this Saturday morning. My name is Doug McIntyre, and I'll be bringing you folk music for the holiday season, both Christmas and Hanukkah this morning. We're also going to take your requests, and we'll be playing a full cross-section of folk music for you this morning for your holiday weekend. Stay tuned. And Sam Weiss before that with Hologram. Jean and Rose, called that piece. Norman Blake and John McCutcheon. John McCutcheon starting things off with Old Christmas Morning and Breaking Up Christmas, a little request from Oberlin that came in this morning. Now 6:19, and this is a Saturday morning. It's a special weekend. It's a seasonal weekend, playing a little bit more Christmas music and some Hanukkah music a little later on. This is the start of Hanukkah weekend, which is tomorrow. You're in tune with folk music, programming in the traditional vein this Saturday morning on WKSU in Kent with your host, Doug McIntyre. We're going to continue in a little bit more of a spiritual line in a moment with Jesse Fuller, something from an album of folk songs and spirituals.
Be with us this weekend on A Prairie Home Companion as Garrison Keeler welcomes special guests, the Nylons. We'll also have Angelo Rulli, the mechanical musician, and klezmer music from the Canadian group Finjan, live on A Prairie Home Companion over this American Public Radio station.
And A Prairie Home Companion can be heard this evening at 6 p.m. on WKSU 89.7 FM. We're going to hear something now from Jesse Fuller. This is an album of spirituals and folk songs with a song called Take This Hammer. He has a little explanation.
This song is Take This Hammer to the Captain. I always liked that song better than any other. That's my favorite song. Used to work on the railroads and mine camps and everywhere, and I always liked that song the best. Working on the railroad, dollar a day. Working on the railroad, dollar a day. Working on the railroad, dollar a day. Taking my money, baby, and you're throwing away. Take this hammer, take it to the captain. Take this hammer, take it to the captain. Take this hammer, take it to the captain. Tell him I'm gone, oh buddy, and tell him I'm gone. Wake up in the morning when the ding dong ring. Wake up in the morning, the ding dong ring. Wake up in the morning, buddy, when the ding dong ring. When you look on the table, it's the same old thing. This old hammer, and it ring like silver. This old hammer, it ring like silver. This old hammer, buddy, and it ring like silver. Shine like gold, oh, buddy, and it shine like gold. This old hammer killed John Henry. This old hammer killed John Henry. This old hammer, Lord, it killed John Henry. Won't kill me, oh, buddy, and it won't kill me. Wake up, buddy, uncover your head. Wake up, buddy, uncover your head. Wake up, buddy, uncover your head. Or the captain gonna wake you until you're almost dead. When you hear them cuckoos hollering, when you hear them cuckoos hollering, when you hear them cuckoos hollering, sign a rain, little buddy sign a ring.
Well, I'm gonna move way out on the outskirts of town. I'm gonna move way out on the outskirts of town. And I don't want nobody always hanging around. Let me tell you, baby, as soon as we move away from here, I don't want no ice man. I'm gonna get you a Frigidaire when we move way out on the outskirts of town. Yeah, I don't want nobody who's always sponging around. Yeah. Well, I wake up every morning and it's a low down dirty shame. You got your mean pecking on my window pane. That's why I'm gonna move